Hi, this is Robert Garcia, two-time trainer of the year, and you are listening to Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show. Hey, welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we've got another excellent show planned for you today. In a short while, we are going to be talking to an outstanding, undefeated young fighter from Belarus who is in the semifinal round of the World Boxing Super Series Super Lightweight Tournament. Ivan the Beast Baranchyk is 19-0 with 12 knockouts, and he's headed toward a showdown with undefeated Josh Taylor, one of the favorites to win the WBSS. The winner goes on to face either Regis Prograis, the Rougarou, or Karel Relic for the championship. Ivan immigrated to the U.S. a couple of years ago and has lived and trained in Brooklyn, New York, and Miami, Oklahoma, and boxing fans know that's how Oklahomans pronounce Miami, and he's now living in Miami, Florida, which gets a little confusing. He did live in Miami, and now he's living in Miami. So he doesn't speak a whole lot of English, so John Raspanti and I, sent him the questions in advance so he could prep for his very first English language interview on a national boxing podcast. So stay with us, and we'll see how that goes. Our British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, had some audio problems today while he was trying to record his segment from the UK, so we're not going to have that today, unfortunately. But we're going to open the week with a look at the week in boxing with our expert analyst, Travis Hartman, who's a professional boxer, promoter, and trainer from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid is a boxing journalist from Toronto, and John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com, and John and I are co-authors of Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, and Amazon bestseller. Hey guys, Saturday night's big fight, and we will put that in air quotes, was Canelo Alvarez's 2.5-round obliteration of Rocky Fielding, who towered over Canelo at the press conferences, but he looked a whole lot shorter when he was down on a knee recovering from body shots in all 3 rounds. Eddie Hearn and DAZN invested $365 million to sign Canelo to 11 fights, and this is what they gave boxing fans in the very first fight. If I had paid to watch it, which people did, I'd be a bit annoyed today. I don't think you can charge money to watch crap like that. Riz, you were so heartbroken afterwards that you posted a GIF of a comic book guy from The Simpsons saying, "Worst fighter ever." Did you really feel that?
Yeah, I think that was, to be honest, going a bit easy. Rocky Fielding's seems like a nice guy and all that, but let's face it, he's not a very good fighter. He's the only time he actually had any sort of step up in competition was Callum Smith. Now, Callum Smith is arguably, people would argue, at least top 2 or 3 in that division. But that wasn't even that was a total mismatch. Callum Smith dropped him in 30 seconds and finished him 2 minutes later. Now, no one was expecting Canelo to fight, Callum Smith, obviously on a 168-pound debut. But this has a Pacquiao thing going where they say, he's another division champion. No, he's not. I have no idea how the hell. I have no idea how Rocky Fielding had a title. I've never heard of the man he beat for a title. It's a WBA title, so that to me doesn't count. WBA title is pretty much a participation trophy. If you get in the ring, you get a title, which is pretty embarrassing, to be honest. So, I had no issue with the fight itself. Canelo just fought Golovkin 3 months ago, and, they probably want to test the waters and see the kind of numbers he could bring in on DAZN, and I think that was part of maybe a bit of the guarantee that DAZN wanted, when he signed the contract. I think they want him to be active. They don't want this, 11-fight contract going on for 10 years. So it made sense to have a quick turnaround for a fight like this. We discussed this a couple months ago. We weren't surprised that it wasn't David Lemieux, because that would be a hard fight maybe on 3 months' notice after taking on Golovkin. But, I mean, let's face it, we all knew, like, Rocky Fielding, and the funny thing is, I don't think Fielding ever looked hurt at all during the fight. But I don't remember a guy who's that tall who's so bad at using his reach and just exposes his body so much. I mean, it's just the complete opposite of what you're supposed to do. So each time he was dropped, he never seemed like he was badly hurt. Rocky Fielding seems like a guy who's a very good athlete and made a career out of boxing for that, but he's not, he doesn't obviously have the skills of a fighter. And then even every time he was knocked down, it never seemed like, he was wobbled or anything like that. He just kind of kept going down, and that just that's not really what you see in boxing usually. Usually guys are hurt and they're worn down, or there's a shot that rocked them. That was not it. It was just like kind of the same punch over and over again. And any intelligent fighter kind of knows how to get around that. But Rocky Fielding obviously did not belong in the ring with Canelo. I don't think anyone too much had a problem with it. I know you're saying that a lot of people paid for it, but people are paying for the zone subscription anyways. So I don't think they're complaining too much that they just got to see Canelo fight. And my thinking is, if someone's fighting 4 times a year and they have 2 opponents like this that builds up into a bigger fight, I'm fine with that. I think the issue I have is when a guy fights twice a year, and this is at least one of those fights. So, I mean, for Canelo for his debut, it's fine, but, I mean, we're obviously expecting a much, much stiffer competition in the next fight. And now, obviously, he's saying now that his next fight could be between 160 and 168. So I guess we're going divisionless again, especially because David Lemieux couldn't make weight and dehydrated, and his fight was off. So it's clear that he won't be able to make 160 anymore. So seems like we're going to get another non-middleweight title at another division.
Yeah. Well, Travis, you're the professional boxer who's been in the ring with Keith Thurman and Terrence Crawford and a lot of other studs, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. You stood up for Rocky Fielding like a defense attorney yesterday when Rizwaan made fun of him. I mean, he was the WBA super middleweight belt holder for what that's worth, and he brought a 27-1 record, 15 knockouts to Madison Square Garden. And he had the guts to take his shot at a Rocky moment. And this is the oldest story in boxing. Muhammad Ali in his heyday fought Alfredo Evangelista and Jürgen Blin and Brian London just to stay busy and keep his name out there. And Canelo was venturing 8 pounds over his own weight division for the first time. But De La Hoya and Hearn knew from the day they signed the fight that they were, kind of fleecing the fans, don't you think?
Yeah, and I mean, to Riz, but it's always guys been in the ring that's took one of those shots that always say, it didn't look like much. I mean, ask De La Hoya when De La Hoya took that body shot from Bernard Hopkins. It didn't look like much at all, but I can promise you that it was. And body punches are the worst. I've never been knocked out to the head by any fighter that I've ever fought. I've been stopped by body punches regularly because body punches do damage. And by all means, was Rocky Fielding on the level of Canelo? Not even close. I would never argue that, and I never tried to argue that. But Rocky Fielding was 27-1. He lost 1 fight in his career, and arguably he stepped up to Callum Smith and lost. He stepped up to Canelo, and he lost. But we could say a lot of that about guys like Amir Khan. Amir Khan stepped up to Canelo, up to Danny Garcia, and got knocked out. But Amir Khan can fight. It's just... It was what it was. We all knew what it was. We all knew why Canelo was doing it. He went up to 168, and there was a huge and massive size difference. If you watch that, you could totally – I was actually – when the first bell rang and they got in the middle of the ring, I was like, oh, my goodness, this just doesn't even look right. Like, it was so weird. And Canelo, that's how smart Canelo is. If Canelo would have tried to box him, it would have been a longer night for sure. But Canelo knew to go to that body because Rocky Fielding was so much taller, had such a longer waist, and it's harder for taller guys with a long body to protect their body. I'm telling you, those body punches were legit. And you know they're legit when they hit them, and it's a delayed reaction. When the reaction is delayed, you know damn well that hurt very much. And I've been there, done that, especially with a lot of the top fighters. I know that Terrence Crawford didn't stop me. Terrence Crawford banged my body harder than anybody that I've ever been hit with in my entire life to this day. So body punches it's an art, and I'm telling you that just because they don't look hard, I promise you, body punches take more out of you than even headshots do. And I mean, that's why you see guys that are tough as nails like Arturo Gatti. He could take head punches all night long. You go to his body, you can break him down easier. And again, Canelo is just, last night was more of how amazing Canelo was. In my opinion, I never like putting any fighter down, especially a fighter that's 27-1. He's not terrible. He's not a bum. He was 27-1. He beat 27 people out of the 28 that he faced. And arguably, Callum Smith is up there. Callum Smith might be one of the top premier guys in that division. So he's lost to him, and he's lost to Canelo now. So I would say he's still up there. Is he a world champion? No. We've watered that down this day and age with all these trinket belts, and that's exactly what they called it. They called it a trinket belt, and that's probably the fair enough name for it. And honestly, Canelo is just adding to his legacy, and I that Canelo was going to fight in December. We talked about it on the show, Dennis, and I actually laughed and scoffed. I was like, no way, he's definitely not fighting in December. And he's fighting in December, so I don't care who he fights. He went through a full training camp, which is tough and difficult, and he went out there and he still fought and put on a show. And I'm impressed with Canelo, just simple fact that he got back in the ring in December. And that's impressive, especially coming off of a fight against a guy like Triple G. So last night was a showcase fight for sure. Fighters always do it. There's been tons of fighters that have done it. Manny Pacquiao, fighting Brandon Rios. There's always fighters that fight fights like that. And to be honest, Dennis, I don't think people were actually disappointed. The fans were going nuts. They were cheering, and I was actually surprised. I was waiting for the boo birds to happen, but it didn't happen. Fans were yelling and screaming and cheering and chanting Canelo, and they were happy with the performance. I mean, us, me, you, and the guys on the show, we know that wasn't a high-level boxing match, but we're not the guys that pay the bills when it comes to the average fan. The average fan's the guy who pays the bills and watches, and for the most part, all I've heard is pretty good reviews. The fans weren't booing. The fans weren't pissed off. And it's mainly the experts like us that know that, hey, that was a crappy fight. It wasn't what we're used to, especially just seeing Canelo fight Triple G. And then we see him step in the ring with Rocky Fielding. So experts like us, we know what it was. But the average fan, they necessarily didn't. They just think Canelo's great. And I'm kind of on board with that. I think Canelo is great. I think Canelo is top 5 pound for pound easily in the world right now. So it was a good. I subscribe to DAZN. I'm a sucker, I guess, but they're showing 100 fights next year, so I'm happy with the $9.99 a month and no pay-per-view. So to me, it all averages out to be worth it, and it's really $9.99 a month compared to $80 for a pay-per-view, and there's 2 or 3 pay-per-views a year. I get 100 fights for $9.99 a month. I mean, that's not bad. It's $100-something in a year, so it's not really a bad deal if you break it down to that, and you don't pay for pay-per-views anymore. And that's kind of what DAZN is doing. They're kind of doing away with pay-per-views. What they're kind of anticipating, and kind of it's their business plan. So it's not a bad plan, to be honest.
Okay, John, I'll get your take on the fight, and also I want to segue to something else. On Friday, I think it might have been Saturday, you had Golden Boy CEO Eric Gomez telling Golovkin and Jacobs and Charlo that they're going to have to get in line and wait their turn to fight Canelo, which I thought was kind of a dumb message to send boxing fans. Get in line behind who?
Oh, it's just the posturing that's done with matchmakers, promoters, etc. They know that I think most people want to see Canelo and Jacobs in May, and because that would be one heck of a fight. And Jacobs was there last night, and he's obviously, as we know, as we've discussed, a very good fighter. So that doesn't mean anything. In a couple of months, no one will even be thinking about what he said and everything. I agree with both guys on last night's fight. We knew what it was, but I had no problem with Canelo getting back in there so soon. I actually liked that. And Rocky Fielding, I hadn't really heard of him. I know that when he went to Germany and won his so-called title, and and I completely agree with it. Every time I write about these WBA titles, it just makes me so mad because, Dennis, when we were young which was a million years ago, when a fighter won a world title, it was huge. I mean, it was amazing. And now it's like you get one when you it's like Riz said, you get in the ring, you get a title. And all it's done is just cheapened the whole thing. And that really bugs me. I mean, because I know every fighter I've ever talked to, that's their dream, is to win a world title. And I'm sure Rocky Fielding was thrilled to win a world title, because he probably knows better than anyone that he's not elite. I mean, he's okay. I'm not going to say anything bad about him like he's a bum, like we were saying, because he's not. He can't beat 27 guys and be a bum. No way. And anyway, I hate it when anybody calls fighters bums anyway, because I don't see them that way. So he did his best last night. He was overwhelmed. And those body shots, again, I agree with Travis. I mean, I've gone to the gym and watched fighters spar, and when they sit down on those body punches, and Canelo, he was throwing some beauties to the body. I mean, you guys remember he knocked out Liam Smith with a body shot like that in Texas, just right to the ribs or the liver, and it was a thing of beauty, and he was really digging into it, and he can really punch. You know, as I said, his punches are like firecrackers when they go off. So I wasn't surprised, and again, I agree. I mean, if just think about it, if that fight had been, which is ridiculous, but of course, just give me a second here. If that fight had been somehow a pay-per-view, and you had only paid $9.99, you would have been saying, well, I only paid $9.99 to see that fight, so that's much better than paying $89 or $90. Plus, for us boxing nuts, the undercard was interesting. I got to see Katie Taylor, who I really like to watch fight. She's so good, and unfortunately, Lemieux didn't make it, but there were some good fights on the undercard. Saw a local fighter. So for the other fans, though, seeing Canelo, I mean, obviously he's a superstar. They sold out Madison Square Garden last night. That says a lot. So yeah, it's a hit and miss. It's a mixed thing. But as far as the event, as far as Canelo moving forward to 2019, as far as DAZN, I think it was a big time success, Dennis.
Okay, and you just mentioned the undercard, John. Let me throw up a jump ball to Riz and Travis. Anybody on the undercard catch your attention? Tevin Farmer, Ryan Garcia, Katie Taylor, Sadam Ali, they all won.
That was a really stacked undercard. I don't know where Sadam Ali goes from here. Mauricio Herrera is not exactly an easy fighter to fight. Sadam Ali, because it seems like he might have kind of the unfortunate problem of being in two divisions. He thinks he's too big, where he can't make 147 very comfortably unless he's on a kind of a new diet plan or something like that. At 154, he was, Jaime Munguia looked like a super middleweight in there. But at welterweight, I don't know how comfortably he's making weight, because when he got knocked down and stopped against Jesse Vargas, he just looked he looked completely depleted, and against Cotto he looked like a completely different fighter. So so not only has come, he's done a lot in his career, and he's still very young, but I think he can still make some noise at welterweight just because he is a pretty accomplished he was an accomplished amateur fighter, and he's already done a good amount in a short time of his career. Tevin Farmer, I don't know. I don't know what to make of him, to be honest. They were really pushing him very heavy on HBO over the last couple of years. I haven't seen anything spectacular from him just yet. I know he has some good skill, but he definitely needs to step up in competition. Way on the undercard, Yves Ulysse Jr., who's from Montreal, who I saw fought on the undercard of the Billy Joe Saunders David Lemieux card the previous year. He beat Cletus Selden, who HBO was pushing dramatically at the time. So he's looked good over the last couple of fights. I think he might be in line for a title shot fairly soon at 140. On top of that, there's an Australian fighter who I've never seen fight before, Bilal Akawi. He had a huge knockout, and he's kind of on his way up. He's at perfect age of 25 and going from established prospect to contender. Obviously, step up the competition. So this is where a lot of fighters kind of have their make or break. We've seen so many guys who are 19-0 and they take that next step and you see they're not there. And for some of them, and not to throw shade at Rocky Fielding, I don't want to make it look like I'm insulting him, because I'm not. He's he tried his best, and he tried to have his Rocky moment, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But like we all said, he didn't belong in the ring with Canelo. But there's a lot of guys like that. There's a lot of guys who have the regional circuit kind of guys who who can make some noise there, and then but on an international level, they're just not there. But it's interesting to see. DAZN has already had a pretty good undercard. I mean, I think that obviously David Lemieux not being on the undercard is really hurt them. And David Lemieux, I don't know. This is not the first time he's missed weight or had problems making weight. I think throughout his whole career he's had that problem, and I think he just kind of refused to acknowledge it. Now I don't know if it's him slacking in training camp. I don't know if it's. I mean, he's a big person. We know that he's a heavy set guy. I mean, he's only probably 5'9". He's probably 5'10" at most, but he probably walks around 185. He's a big dude. And it's a shame because if he goes on 168, he's going to be way too small of that division. I mean, the funny thing is Rocky Fielding would have had a much better chance, I think, against David Lemieux because, David Lemieux Canelo has ring IQ. I think we all agree on that. And Canelo has gotten better as a smarter fighter, where he sees a hole and he knows how to expose it. But David Lemieux would be troubling for him at 168. Canelo's skill will allow him to have very good chances at 168. So that's the funny thing to hear what Eric Gomez was saying, because I don't think there's a fighter at 160 that you wouldn't favor Canelo over that opponent. And that includes Golovkin. Obviously, Golovkin is much older now than he was a few years ago, and we've seen him kind of drop even the 5%, 10% worth, where Canelo's probably just reaching his prime right now. Canelo's 28 right now. It's the perfect age for him. So I don't know. With Charlo and Jacobs and all these guys, to be honest, I think Canelo beats every single one of them. But it's a shame. It will be a shame if we don't see it. But I think what DAZN has done a really good job of is, I mean, you're not paying even $10 for this card. You're paying $10 for the subscription, which gets other boxing cards and other fights and kind of everything all together. So you're not just looking at this one specific fight. So you're actually paying even less when you think about that. So the undercard has. I'm wondering how they're going to go with these undercards in the future. Are they going to show other big fights? Are they going to make stack cards? Are they going to show kind of prospects, kind of how they did last night, and comeback fighters? And last night they showed a bit of everyone. They showed Ryan Garcia, who's obviously an up-and-coming prospect. Sadam Ali was on the comeback trail. Usyk Jr. is getting some exposure. So it'll be interesting to see how they operate on that. But I mean, that's a lot of, decent name fighters who we've seen on television before for an undercard. So, and if that's what they're doing for a Canelo undercard, albeit, Canelo and Rocky Fielding, I think the undercard, the setup, I really like. I think that's why I don't think people were too disappointed or anything like that in the main event, because there was just a lot of fighters and fights that you wanted to see. Pretty much what a lot of PBC is showing as main events, we're seeing here as a stacked undercard. So, there's always still learning on the go, but I think overall, what they're doing with their undercard is pretty good. So I think we're going to see a similar structure going forward.
Travis, what do you think of Ryan Garcia? Is he special?
No, I don't think he's special. I mean, I think that he has blossomed in the social media age that we're in. I mean, the kid has 1.5 million Instagram followers.
Wow.
So I mean, that's why he's getting all of the hype. That's why he's getting all. Don't get me wrong, one bit. Can the kid fight? Yes. Is he special? No. I see him beating. I believe he's 130, and he's 130, right? If I'm correct. And if he's 130, I can't see him beating a guy like even Tevin Farmer. I can't see him beating a guy like Gervonta Davis. I can't see him beating any of the top guys at all. I actually see him demolishing him, especially after his fight, his previous fight before this one. He looked terrible, and a lot of people probably thought he lost. So I think that Golden Boy has found a little bit of an Oscar De La Hoya type, because the kid's good looking, the kid's charismatic, but the kid can't fight like De La Hoya. He just can't. He's good, he's explosive, and he does what he's supposed to against the opponent fighting. But I don't think that he's special by no means. Can he get there? I'm not sure. I honestly, I don't think so. I think he's more of I think Bill Parcells, that you could never have a great quarterback if he's too showtime, if he's too popular with the media, if he's too much like a Joe Namath almost type, because he says that they feed into that too much. And look at a guy like Ryan Garcia, 0.5 million Instagram followers, and the kid's like early 20s. He's like 20, I think. Maybe not even 21. I think he's 20. So, I mean, that's going to go to the kid's head quite a bit, and it's going to be hard not to go to your head when you're that popular that quick without really having to earn it. I know that what he's done is difficult, because obviously I'm a boxer and I didn't do what he did. So I know he's doing is pretty amazing because he's still undefeated. But I just don't see him beating any of the top guys. And just last topic to touch on that Rocky Fielding, we're always going to see fights like Rocky Fielding against Canelo because I just watched this 30 for 30, the Buster Douglas-Mike Tyson. Buster Douglas was 42-1. People laughed at Don King when they said, I'm putting Buster Douglas against Tyson. They're like, that's a joke. The fight's already over before it started. Tyson beat the guy before the bell rang. And people said that about this fight with Rocky Fielding. And I'm not necessarily comparing Rocky Fielding to Buster Douglas, but Buster Douglas wasn't impressive. Buster Douglas had a couple losses on his record before Tyson. Buster Douglas had quit in the ring. Buster was supposed to do anything. His mom died 20 days before that fight. So it's fights like that that make boxing special because there's always that underdog story. And, Rocky Fielding, he had his Rocky moment, and Canelo crushed it because Canelo is Canelo. But we're always going to have fights like that just because there's always that one-off chance that something crazy can happen, and that's what's the beauty of boxing. That's why people watch it, because you truly never know that one punch can change an entire fight. And I'm not saying Rocky Fielding could have knocked out Canelo because Triple G couldn't even knock out Canelo, but you never know. There's been crazier things that happened. Nobody ever in a million years thought Buster Douglas was going to knock out Mike Tyson. Even watching that 30 for 30, I'm just like, this isn't going to happen. Like, there's no way. But I saw it live myself, and I was just like, but still watching it even over, I'm just like, no way Buster Douglas was supposed to not only beat Tyson, but the way he beat Tyson. So we're always going to have those Buster Douglas, Rocky Fielding moments, possibilities, and that's probably what Golden Boy was going for. Plus, DAZN is a UK-based company, so Rocky Fielding is a UK-based, air quotes, super middleweight champion. I agree with that. The championships have been watered down so much it's not even funny anymore. But still, even on that token, to win one of those, you're still doing okay. I never even got a chance to fight for one of those. You're still doing okay, even if you win one of those. Not great. Like back in the day when we had one champion. If you were a title holder, you were legit. Everybody in the world knew you were legit. Now if you're a title holder, we're like, you're good, but you're not elite. You're not legit until you beat a legit guy. And that's because we have too many titles. We have 4 or 5 titles now. I mean, the IDO is coming up there to being recognized, whatever that means. But there's just too many titles, and it does get watered down because of that.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor. We're talking to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti. John, we learned yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that Willie Monroe Jr. has been pulled from that December 22nd title fight against Jermall Charlo because of, quote, an adverse finding, unquote, in a test administered by the Volunteer Anti-Doping Association, VADA. That's murky, but it sounds like they found something that looks like performance-enhancing drugs in his system. Word on Saturday is that Charlo might wind up fighting this guy, Matt Korobov, who's 28-1 with 14 knockouts, and he's a southpaw like Monroe. Korobov was scheduled for an 8-rounder in an untelevised portion of the PBC broadcast on Fox, and so this would be a huge opportunity for him, and maybe a tougher test for Charlo, don't you think? It's a big jump for Korobov, but his biggest wins have been a unanimous decision over Jose Uzcategui 4 years ago, and his only loss was TKO to Andy Lee. So I guess the question becomes, is he a bigger threat than Willie Monroe was to Jermall Charlo, who is 27-0 with 21 knockouts?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Korobov has been very inactive, and he's a guy who's maybe Korobov a few years ago, but I mean he's now 35 and he's barely fought since he lost to Andy Lee, and that remains his only loss. But I mean he hasn't. First of all, he's been inactive, and second of all, when he has been active, he hasn't fought anyone like this. So I don't think it's going to be a more difficult fight necessarily, but I think it'll be definitely a different fight because you really don't know kind of what you're expecting. I mean, they haven't said if it's confirmed or not. I'm actually surprised Willie Monroe has got, some of the big fights that he has, but it's funny how if you're I feel like almost now, if you're not the A+ guy, if you're a A- or B+ fighter, you're more likely to get big fights. Because if I look at, Willie Monroe, he fought Billy Joe Saunders, he fought Golovkin, and he was, about to fight a Charlo, where we haven't seen any of those 3 fighters fight amongst each other. right? And it's funny how a guy like Willie Monroe, who's, you know, I wouldn't say, I would never call Willie Monroe style pleasing or entertaining or anything like that either. So it's funny how the way it is now, it's those kind of guys can get the big fight. So Korobov getting this fight is sort of out of the blue, out of all the fighters that are kind of out there. I mean, again, he hasn't fought anyone, you know, remotely top 5 or top 10 even, you know, since in the last 4 years now, right? He's had 2 times where he's taken over a year gap. His biggest win is against Brian Vera, and not the Brian Vera who shocked Andy Lee, you know, 10 years ago. So this is, it looks like it's pretty much confirmed. And again, it's a week notice. What kind of shape he's in, I don't know. But, you know, for Charlo, and that's the unfortunate thing for both Charlos. We haven't really seen them against anyone who you consider, you know, a top 160-pound fighter or anything like that either. So I don't know where they go from here, because the PBCs, I think they're struggling to find quality opponents for certain fighters. And I think Deontay Wilder summed it up best. I know he's talking about Mayweather's promotion specifically, but he was saying, you know, they're not, Mayweather still wants to be the guy, right? He's not talking about his fighters or anything like that. I'm wondering if the Charlos are going through the same thing, but I really hope they get, you know, somewhat of a bigger fight, because, I mean, you know, the Hugo Centeno Juniors and the Julian Williams and you know, I love Austin Trout, but, you know, Austin Trout is not, he's no spring chicken either. And Willie Monroe, I mean, it's sad when the guy who's filling in on a week's notice is probably better than your original opponent anyways. Korobov will show a completely different look and a different perspective, but I mean, I don't think anyone's really thinking that he's going to be, you know, he's going to be very difficult for Charlo.
Well, he was training for an 8-rounder on this same card. So
that's right. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. So he's going to be in shape. And John, are you still with us? Are you still out there? I think we lost John. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say, Riz made such a good point with that Willie Monroe, is that those guys, it does seem like those guys get the bigger fights more often, and this is why. It's because they're just good enough to be there, but they're also just not good enough to beat these guys. So they're the perfect antidote, the perfect fill-in almost. Fights that have showcase fights to where when people beat guys like Willie Monroe, they're like, oh, you know, Willie Monroe is, you know, he was good. You know, he's supposed to beat him. They're fights like that. But those guys, they seem to be the busiest and get the biggest fights because they're just good enough to be there, but they're just to that point to where they're not good enough to actually win. So all of the top fighters want to fight guys like that because they know they're going to beat them. And they know that they're still skilled and you got to show up to beat them. But guys like Willie Monroe get those fights because of that very reason. And it's exactly right. I mean, they stay busy. They're B-plus fighters, so they're good fighters, but they're just not necessarily good enough to beat those bigger fighters.
Okay. And, John, are you there now?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So the Sweet Science named its Fighter of the Year and Trainer of the Year on Saturday. And Bernard Fernandez, who's a real good veteran boxing journalist, wrote the articles. And his choices were Oleksandr Usyk for Fighter of the Year and Anatoly Lomachenko as Trainer of the Year. Man, both very solid picks, I think. Usyk won 3 times this year, beat Mares Briedis for the WBO cruiserweight belt. Then he beat Murat Gassiev to add 3 title belts, IBF, WBA, and WBC, and both of those wins were by decision. And then he TKO'd Tony Bellew, and that was last month, to defend those 4 belts. Vasily Lomachenko TKO'd Jorge Linares and won a decision over Jose Pedraza. So I would say he's a good choice too for Fighter of the Year, but Usyk got that award. What do you think about those 2 picks?
Well, I really like Usyk. I was thinking actually yesterday I have to do for Max Boxing, I have to do Fight of the Year, Fighter of the Year, maybe Knockout of the Year, and I was leaning towards Usyk because we've talked about this so many times. The fact that the guy goes on the road and wins like he does is, to me, is something that people shouldn't just shrug at. I mean, that is so impressive to do what he does, and he is a delight to watch, not only for a boxing purist, but for a guy that brings it, and he's in exciting fights. So he is the guy that, a little spoiler alert, who I'm leaning towards right now for Fighter of the Year. Trainer of the Year, I haven't given that one a lot of thought, but of course you can never go wrong with Lomachenko, and he's obviously an extremely accomplished trainer. He worked with Usyk before. I don't think he worked with him before the Bellew fight because he was working with his son, but he has worked with him in the past. There's a lot of good trainers out there, but you can't go wrong with those choices. But back with what I said, Usyk, though, I've seen a lot of that guy's fights, and early in his career, I saw some of his fights, and I was immediately impressed. And amazingly enough, he seems to be improving as he learns the pro game more. It's almost like we saw with Lomachenko. It's like Lomachenko had to learn how to fight as a pro, and then as soon as he did, he just started dominating everybody. Usyk hasn't necessarily dominated, but he's not only got talent, but he's got ring savvy, which is really impressive, and that's not something that everybody has. So again, I don't have a problem with him being Fighter of the Year. I actually think it's a good pick, and I would actually agree with that.
Okay, Travis, what do you think of Gervonta Davis? He's going to fight Abner Mares on February 9th in San Diego. The guy's 20-0, 19 knockouts, and he's the WBA super featherweight champ, whatever the hell that is. He got that by beating Jesus Cuellar in 3 rounds. And Mares also beat Cuellar, by the way, back in December of 2016. And then he won a technical decision over Andres Gutierrez, and then he lost his rematch to Santa Cruz. So those are his last 3 fights. Mares is going to be fighting at super featherweight for the first time. Is this a good fight? Travis, you there? Hello?
Yeah, can we finish?
Yep. You're going in and out a little bit, so if you can.
Okay. Can you hear me good now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. It's like a Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? But I think Gervonta Davis is he's going down an Adrian Broner path. But to be honest, I think he's a little more talented than Adrian Broner. But I don't think either one of those guys have it upstairs. I think he beats Mares for sure. But I want to see a Tevin Farmer Gervonta Tank Davis fight. That would be an awesome fight. And they've been kind of going back and forth on Twitter for quite some time about that fight. Those two are kind of beefing a little bit. And honestly, Gervonta Davis is beefing with his own promoter, Floyd Mayweather. But I'd like to see him more active. And by the sounds of it, Gervonta wants to be more active. But I think that it is right now with Floyd Mayweather. He's not a good promoter yet because he's still all about himself. He's still all about making money and still fighting. He's going to fight in Japan. So until Floyd Mayweather officially retires, I don't think he's going to be a good promoter because he's still really promoting himself and not showing attention to these fighters because Gervonta Davis at 130 pounds should be fighting 3-4 times a year. I mean, Tevin Farmer was doing it. So there's no reason that he shouldn't. And Gervonta, by all means, seems like he wants to, but he's been kind of put on the sideline because, to be honest, I think Floyd Mayweather is too busy with his own career, so to speak, still. So it's definitely a sucky situation. But the Abner Mares fight's going to be a good fight because we all know that Abner can fight. We all know that he's an exciting fight. He's not a boring fighter. He's going to bring it. But I think Gervonta stops him, to be honest. I think he definitely stops him. And I know that Tevin Farmer said that he's got a date for March in Philadelphia at the Lacara Center. So I hope that maybe those two can match up and fight each other because then there's so many people around that weight division that would be exciting, like Lomachenko for one. So I would love to see any of those guys in there. I mean, I don't think any of us on the show think that anybody could beat Lomachenko, but I would love to see Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis. I would love to see Lomachenko against a Tevin Farmer because if I'm right, they said Tevin Farmer used to be a sparring partner with Lomachenko. So Tevin Farmer is very talented as well. Can he beat Lomachenko? I don't know. But do I want to see it? Absolutely want to see it. So I think that Gervonta gets past Abner Mares, which he will, which gives us some more options for a guy like Lomachenko because at the end of the day, at the 130-pound division, 135-pound division, even 126-pound division, everybody is looking to be on the Lomachenko level. You know, there's nobody else. There's Lomachenko, then everybody else. And that's just kind of how it is because he's that good. But there is some options there of fights that I would like to see and people that I think would definitely test Lomachenko, and that's Gervonta. I think Gervonta is super talented. The guy punches so hard. The guy's so fast. He's really smart in the ring. Too bad he's not smart outside the ring, but he's very smart in that ring, and so is Tevin Farmer. So I'm looking forward. I think that division, around that division, 126, 130, 135 even, I think it's a very exciting division right now with a lot of options. So I think we all should pay close attention to it because there'll be some really good fights in that division.
Okay, and last one for you guys. You guys all saw Gilberto Ramirez, Zurdo Ramirez, go to 39-0 on Friday night with his second win over Jesse Hart. One judge had it even. The other two judges gave it to Ramirez, 115-113. Bob Arum is quoting that Ramirez is the guy who's going to beat Canelo. You immediately opined that Ramirez is enormously overrated. Why do you feel that way?
It's just the same reason. He hasn't fought, the A-listers of his division. I mean, it's fine for Canelo was moving up and he was doing it on short notice, so I don't give Canelo any flack for that. But the best win Gilberto Ramirez has is a win over Jesse Hart, or two close wins over Jesse Hart. And I like Jesse Hart, but he's not a great fighter or anything like that. I mean, when you look at the 168-pound division, there's just much better fights out there, in my opinion, and I think I'd rather see Gilberto Ramirez against like Caleb Smith or hell, even George Groves, or a fighter who's kind of always gets passed over when we look at him is Jose Usyk. He's every time we've seen him, he's looked dangerous, and that's someone who's looked like a completely different animal at 168. We're talking about guys who, the guys who struggle to make weight. Against Matt Korobov, he was dropped, I think twice, and he lost. And at 168, he just looks like a completely different animal. He looks way bigger, way stronger, and he was probably depleting himself at that weight class. So, I think is a tough out for anyone. He's only 27, and I think usually Gilberto Ramirez has a bit of a size advantage over a lot of fighters. Jesse Hart didn't have a size advantage over him, but I mean, he didn't look, let's face it, if we're looking through the list of the guys Gilberto Ramirez has fought, Jesse Hart twice, Romer, Alexis Angulo, I've never heard of, Habib Ahmed, who I've never heard of, Max Baranchyk, who I've never heard of. The only guy we've actually heard of where he beat him for the title was Arthur Abraham, and obviously Arthur Abraham is not, the guy's 38 now. He's not the guy who knocked out Edison Miranda going back, 2008 or something like that, 2007. It's been a long time since he's been remotely relevant. So I don't think this really says a lot. So again, this is a problem when you have different networks and all these kind of things, because some divisions just get like totally handicapped. I'd rather have divisions that are kind of locked up with one network rather than this, because you get like Caleb Smith has won the Super 6, and obviously it wasn't the Super 6 that Andre Ward won, but it was still, you're winning a tournament like that, you're obviously doing something right. Where does he go from here? Because I can't see him fighting on ESPN, and I can't see Gilberto Ramirez necessarily jumping to DAZN. So what do we do from here? I think there's a lot of those kind of scenarios where that's where you're going to see a lot of recycled opponents and everything like that, just because you're not seeing you're not seeing the guys that you should be seeing fighting each other, and it just makes it just makes every division at a standstill. I mean, I don't want to see. I have zero interest in ever seeing Gilberto Ramirez fighting a Jesse Hart again. I want to see him fight, especially if it's a main event. I want to see him fight one of the top guys. And if you're not fighting one of the top guys, what are you doing? What's the point of the sport is not to fight the B-level guys and call yourself a champion. Like Gilberto Ramirez is the WBO champion, but there's no one who considers him the best of that division. And it's about time that we see those kind of fights. Otherwise, again, what's the point? No one wants to see, no one wants to see LeBron playing the Atlanta Hawks repeatedly, right? People want to see LeBron James go up against the Warriors, and that's what we need. We need the Warriors to fight the other Warriors. We don't need, the A-listers fighting guys who don't belong in the same division as them. I mean, if Gilberto Ramirez had to give a rematch to Jesse Hart because the first one wasn't that, was actually a little questionable, or the scores and all that, then it says that he obviously is not maybe as good as we think he is. And if he is, then step up the competition. Let's see the fights that actually the fights that when people ask who's going to win, and you're like, well, I don't know. That's what we want to hear, and that's what made a Fury Wilder fight so intriguing, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And if you know what's going to happen, then you don't want to watch it. When we don't know what's going to happen in a fight, that's what makes the fight intriguing. We need more of those kind of fights, intriguing fights.
I think Bob Arum is honestly talking out of his butt again, because Gilberto Ramirez, right after that fight, said, hey, I'm moving up to light heavyweight, 175. So I don't think he's going to fight Canelo. He just knows Canelo's a big money fight out there. But Gilberto himself said, hey, I'm moving up to 175 after this fight. So 168's out of the way for Canelo, to be honest, and 175 it for sure is, out of Canelo's weight class. So this is just Bob Arum just trying to make some noise again, and throw anybody's trying to throw their name in the Canelo hat, because they know that's the biggest fight in the sport right now. It's the biggest money fight. So of course Bob Arum wants to throw that out there, but it's not realistic. I don't think Gilberto Ramirez is ever going to fight Canelo, mainly because he's too big and he's moving up as well. And maybe he will get those big fights at 175, but who knows? But I think Bob Arum, per usual, is just talking out of his butt.
Well, Gilberto Ramirez said he wanted to fight Gvozdyk, and if I'm Bob Arum, I'm going to think I'd rather put him against Canelo and you still have a big money fight out of it, because Gvozdyk's dangerous. Gvozdy's a very dangerous fighter. I'm not talking about, obviously, unfortunately, what happened with Adonis Stevenson. I'm just saying in general, he's a very, very good fighter, and it's not, I'd be shocked if that's the fight we see next. If the next fight is with Gilberto Ramirez fighting Gvozdyk, I'd be absolutely just in awe. I'd be in absolute shock. Right. And in Gilberto Ramirez, to be honest, I don't know how he makes 168, because he is a big fella.
He's massive.
I can't see him. He would be big for light heavyweight. He wouldn't be a small light heavyweight. I can't see him fighting Gvozdyk though. That's not going to end very well for him. But you know what? Kudos for him if he's saying that's what he wants. But, usually we hear a fighter saying, this is what I want, and the next fight is against, someone who's completely overmatched, and it's just not what anyone else wants. So it's time that the promoters and the fighters and all kind of listen to just what the fans want, and hopefully we see more of those.
Okay, and you were just talking about LeBron James, and you magnanimously gave a nod to the Warriors, but hats off to your damn Toronto Raptors this past.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we needed that. I don't think anyone expected the Raptors to have a chance there without Kawhi playing. With Kawhi, it'd be a different story. I was thinking, I'm like, hey, if we blow this lead, I'm glad with what we've seen so far. And then, it seems like your Warriors are not looking great, but I'm sure everyone up in your area is very comfortable to turning around for the games that actually matter.
Yeah, we'll see you in the NBA Finals, pal.
All right, see you in June.
Okay, sounds good, guys. These are our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti. Thanks for the insight, guys. You guys have a great week. All right, and I want to mention that our local fighter, Ruben Villa IV, who won 15 national championships as an amateur and beat Shakur Stevenson twice leading up to the Olympic trials, is going to get his first national television splash. Ruben, who's 14-0 as a pro, is going to be fighting Carlos Vidal, who is also 14-0, in the co-feature of a ShowBox triple header on January 11th from Shreveport, Louisiana. It's called the Margaritaville Casino. Vidal was Puerto Rico's two-time national champion. He was 104-10 as an amateur, so this is a really live opponent for our guy Ruben Villa IV. And also Vidal has knocked out 13 of his 14 opponents as a pro. This is a really exciting matchup for our friends at Garcia Boxing here in Salinas, California, so congrats, guys. And we were hoping to have those guys on today, but that didn't work out, so maybe next week for Ruben Villa and the Garcia Boxing team. We're going to take a real quick break and then return with our featured guest, Ivan the Beast Baranchyk, who is from Belarus and who will be doing his first ever English language interview on a national boxing podcast. And we're proud that it's going to happen on our show. Don't know how it's going to work out, but stay tuned for that. This is about as gutsy as stepping into the boxing ring against undefeated Josh Taylor, which he'll be doing soon in the semifinal round of the World Boxing Super Series. We'll be right back with all of that, so stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, where since 2008 we have been continuously sponsored by Garcia Boxing, the first family of the Sweet Science on California's beautiful Central Coast. Trainers Max and Sam Garcia and ring strategist Dean Hamilton are regarded among the most knowledgeable in the game. And Kathy Garcia, who manages all Garcia boxing fighters, is renowned for her integrity and career guidance, having taken 2 boxers to #1 world rankings. Together they comprise one of the most respected teams in the sport. Learn more by calling 831-261-3214 or send them an email at garciaboxing25@aol.com. I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. You know, writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the official time, 3 minutes of the 7th round. The ringside position has been Anthony Yegan unable to continue. Therefore, your winner by technical knockout, and now the IBF Super Lightweight Champion of the world, and moving on to the semifinals of the World Boxing Super Series Super Lightweight Tournament. He remains undefeated, Ivan the Beast Baranchyk.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show. I am Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti, and today's featured guest is the reigning IBF Super Lightweight Champion of the world, and he's a semifinalist in the World Boxing Super Series, where his next opponent will be undefeated Scottish star Josh Taylor. Ivan the Beast Baranchyk was born in Russia, and he was raised in Belarus, where he became a world amateur champion as a junior. He had his first 3 professional fights in Minsk, which was the capital city of Belarus, and then immigrated to the United States in 2014 to Brooklyn. 4 years later, at age 25, he's living in Miami, Oklahoma, and he's 19-0 with 12 knockouts. Ivan, welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show. We're very excited to talk to you today about your life and career. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you. How are you?
We're doing great. So, Ivan, how different is life in America from what you experienced in Belarus?
I like living in America and USA. I think people are friendly here. Weather is in the States. I live in Miami, Florida right now, yeah. And there are more opportunities for fighters in America.
Ivan, you came to America from Belarus and settled in Brooklyn. What do you remember about the very first time you saw New York City?
I came there in 2014. I like New York City. This place is very energy and fast. You can just relax. You have to work hard every day.
So was it difficult to adjust, Ivan, to life in New York, which obviously is very different from Belarus, where you grew up?
I decided to move in the USA quick because I was following my dream. When you move to another country, where the different culture, people, and tradition, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to change your life to be successful.
So did you enjoy living and training in Brooklyn?
Yes, it was a good time for me.
What was so good about it? I'm sorry, Dennis. What was so good about it? Why did you enjoy it so much?
What did you say?
I said, what? You said it was a good time for you. What was so good about it that made it such a good time for you?
I think joining everything.
Mm-hmm.
I like this country.
I see.
I'm happy every day.
You have sparred with Ivan Golub, who's a welterweight who's 15-1 with 12 knockouts, and Sergey Derevyanchenko, a middleweight who's 12-1 with 10 knockouts. And you just recently fought Daniel Jacobs, I think, right? Did you fight?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. How well did you feel that you did against those two larger fighters?
They are the best fighters and my good friends. I'm enjoyed it when was sparring with them, and I was a great experience for me. Great experience.
So you eventually relocated to Miami, Oklahoma, like we said, a city of just 14,000 people. How does life in Miami compare to what you experienced in Brooklyn, Ivan?
I moved to Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. Okay.
Yeah, Miami, Florida. But I really like Miami, Oklahoma because the people who live there are great people.
Okay, yeah. Tell me more about the people. How different are they in Florida than, say, Brooklyn, which, Brooklyn, New York, known for certain things, in Miami, Florida. Did you notice the differences between the people?
In Florida, maybe everybody just relax, no face. In Brooklyn, everybody rush, go walk, go back, and like this, yeah.
Now, you decided to enter the World Boxing Super Series, which is a tournament with a lot of outstanding super lightweight fighters. Why did you want to be a part of this event?
First of all, to be the best, you must fight the best fighters. Yeah.
In October, in the very first round of the WBSS, you defeated Anthony Yiggett, who's a Swedish boxer, a very talented Swedish boxer, and you won by technical knockout after 7 rounds. You closed his left eye almost completely, and the referee and the doctor stopped the fight after 7 rounds. Did it surprise you that he chose to stand and fight instead of trying to be more elusive against you?
Yes, sure. It surprised me, but I didn't interrupt me to win fairly.
Pedro Diaz is your coach, Ivan, and what has he taught you, and how has he changed you as a fighter since you've been training with him?
Pedro Diaz is a great coach. He has been teaching me Cuban school boxing. A lot of people have told me that they become a better fighter with Pedro, but this only the beginning.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Yiggett fight, because I was watching that, Ivan, and he hit you with a couple of pretty good punches, but you just kind of looked at him. Did anything he did in that fight, did it bother you at all when you were in there with him?
Please, repeat. Can you repeat again, please?
Oh, I just said when you were fighting Anthony Yiggett, I was watching that fight, and he was trying a lot of things with you, and your nickname, the Beast, really was obvious because he hit you with some punches and you just ignored it. And I was wondering, did he do anything in that fight that bothered you at all?
He's a fighter. Because he's a fighter. and he's a great boxer. I think, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Josh Taylor, who a lot of people think is the best fighter in the tournament. Do you expect him to be the toughest opponent you have faced in your professional career?
Yes, Josh Taylor seems to be the tournament fighter. But right now, I'm ready for everyone. That's my mission button.
Ivan, do you see yourself as the underdog coming into this fight with Josh Taylor?
No, I think I'm very fighter with both.
The winner of your fight with Josh Taylor is going to face Regis Prograis or Karel Relic for the WBSS championship. Relic is also from Belarus. Did you know him there?
Yes, I know him there, but you went friends.
Were you ever in the ring with him? Did you ever spar with him or fight him as an amateur?
No.
Never did. Do you have a preference, Ivan, to who you want to face in the finals, Prograis or Relic?
It is a very tough fight for them both. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, how about people have compared you to Gennady Golovkin? Do you like that comparison?
The comparison flatters me when people compare me with such a good fighter as Triple G. This is good for me, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I read that your boxing hero was Mike Tyson. Do you think Mike Tyson's boxing style influenced the way you fight today?
Yes. When I was young, I loved to rewatch his fight. So I think it was impressive to my boxing style.
Have you met Mike Tyson?
Unfortunately, I heard meet him, but it is kind of a dream to meet him and shake his hand.
Yeah. Really.
Hey, one last question for you. How much of a challenge has it been for you to learn English? How difficult has it been?
My English not well. Yeah, but my English not well because I live in Brooklyn and I live in Russian area, Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, and everybody speaks Russian. And when I moved to Miami, Florida, everybody speaks Spanish. English is a problem for me.
Do you have a teacher, an English teacher, or do you learn from TV?
My wife.
Oh, your wife speaks English. Okay.
That's nice.
Okay. Do you have children?
No yet.
Not yet. Okay.
First my career.
Yep. Okay.
Children and everything. Yeah.
Well, you did fine.
You're a very fun boxer to watch. John and I really enjoy watching you fight, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Ivan Baranchyk is the reigning IBF super lightweight champion of the world. He's undefeated, and he will face his strongest challenge in the semifinals of the World Boxing Super Series tournament, where he's going to fight Josh Taylor of Scotland. Ivan, thank you very much for talking to us today on the Ringside Boxing Show, and we wish you the best of luck in the World Boxing Super Series semifinals.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Okay. Ivan Baranchyk on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Hey, if you like this show, do us a solid. Tell your boxing friends about us. Post the Ringside Boxing Show on your social media sites and help us grow. Also, if you haven't yet discovered the #1 boxing site in the world for daily boxing news, you've got something to add to your bucket list. We update RingsideBoxingShow.com 365 days a year with the biggest headlines and hottest stories every single day. If you're a hardcore fan of the sweet science, this should be your first stop every morning, and it might be the only boxing site you need to visit all day. Check it out now and be amazed, RingsideBoxingShow.com. Thanks, as always, to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti, and our outstanding British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin. And, of course, another huge thanks today to featured guest, unbeaten Ivan the Beast Baranchyk of Belarus. Took a lot of courage, John. It took a lot of courage for this kid to come on the show today. He was reluctant to do it because he's very much learning the English language right now. He didn't want to embarrass himself. We sent him the questions in advance, and man, heck, he's 25 years old. He did great, I thought.
He did very well. Yeah, very proud of him.
We'll have him back on a year from now, and he'll talk our ears off. But
yes, for sure.
Yeah, but right now he's just learning the language, and we're damn proud of him for giving this a shot. That took about as much courage as it probably takes to step into the ring.
Yes, it did. Dennis, it took me weeks to convince him to do it, and he knew his limitations, and he was very honest about it, and we knew it, but we feel like, we have to get these guys out here because we want everybody to hear them, and even if they're only learning the language, still, I like it that people hear these guys talk and hear where they come from, their life story. So it might not be the 45-minute interview that we sometimes get, but it's as far as I'm concerned, it's always very informative to get boxers on and let them tell their story the best they can. And you're right, in a year he'll be telling us a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, I'm just proud to be on the ground floor of this kid's career as far as boxing interviews.
For sure.
Because we'll be hearing a lot about him. What do you think his chances are against Josh Taylor, who's a stud?
Well, that was what I was going to try to get out of him, but because what I was really impressed by was how tough he is. I mean, that name, you don't get nicknamed the Beast just by accident. And he's a durable kid. You were watching it, and it didn't seem like anything bothered him. And he's going to bring it to Prograis or to Taylor. He's going to bring it to Taylor, and it's going to be tough. I mean, you've seen Taylor. I've seen Taylor. The kid is really talented, and that's going to be a tall order. But the thing, Ivan is like a throwback. He's kind of like reminiscent of the guys we wrote about, in our book Intimate Warfare. He's going to take 5 or 6 to land one, and he's not, unless he hits them really good. It's hard to even imagine him being hurt after what I was on. Now, Yigit didn't exactly have the biggest punch, but he's one of those guys that fights like, I'm not going to be denied. I'm going to keep coming after you. So obviously it's going to be hard for him because Taylor has a variety of skills. But you don't ever want to underestimate a guy like Ivan because he's got so much determination and so much heart. So obviously he's an underdog going in, but it wouldn't totally shock me if he won after watching his fight because, again, he's got that grit and that determination, and that's part of what makes a fighter a good fighter. So that fight, no matter what happens, is really I see that being a war when they get in there against each other.
Yeah, and you know what? As good as Josh Taylor is, Baranchyk may face the toughest guy in a tournament when he gets to the finals. I think you and I both are huge fans of the Rougarou Regis Prograis.
Yeah.
And I think we both probably expect him to beat Relic.
Yes.
Man, oh man. The Rougarou is a tough kid.
Yeah, we got to have him on again, too, because he was just a delight when we had him on, and I was thinking about trying to get him sometime after Christmas.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't interfere with his training. I doubt it will, and he said he would come on anytime we wanted him to come back on again. Yeah, he's another guy that he's a delight to watch, just like Ivan. Just like all of those guys. I mean, Relic is a delight to watch, Josh Taylor. I mean, this tournament is so loaded with talent And I hope they get the notice they deserve, because you can't take these guys for granted. I mean, they're all the way they're good fighters, and I'm not going to throw great at them, but they're all good, and they're some are very good, like the Rougarou.
Yeah.
So it's just wonderful. If Travis was here, he'd be going on and on about the depth of the talent, and I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, it's fabulous to watch these tournaments and watch these guys go mano a mano. It's a throwback to our day, Dennis, and again, nobody's going to take a backward step. These guys are going to go at it hard as they can, and do what we love, and lay it all on the line. And what more can you ask for?
Absolutely, man. That's John J. Raspanti. I'm Dennis Taylor. And thanks to all you, the Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. You guys keep your chin tucked, and we'll talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
It's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back, 'cause you might get cold cocked if you cross my path.